Rawr! Hello and welcome to Midnight Readings. Today we'll be reading Out in the Rain, written by Galaxynight. As always, these are our amazing Patreons. Link is in the description if you wish to join, and it helps give us lots of food and, well, look after us. Now, shall we get to it? Rain pattered down on the balcony, making it glisten from the faint, distant light. Twilight looked on glumly through her window, resting her hoof against the window pane. A faint light glowed from her horn. It was amazing how, although it's morning, the grey clouds made it seem more like it's night. As soon as the storm began, everything went dark. A part of Twilight's mind thought it was fascinating, and somehow she liked it. She let a small smile grace her face. She was glad there wasn't always complaints to hear, neither any concerns, just the sound of falling rain and the occasional thunder. After a long while, she decided she wanted to go outside. She wanted to feel the rain. Perhaps it would soothe her other worries. It could lift her grey-shaded mood. With the war of conflict in her head, why wouldn't she have a dark cloud hanging over her? She couldn't think of anything better. Turning away from the window, she exited her room and started down the hall. After passing some hallways and stairs, she made it to the door. Using her magic, she pulled them open. Slowly she stepped out, shutting the door behind her, and wandering farther out. Rain fell upon her. To her disappointment, it wasn't nearly the same effect as she had assumed. The rain was both soothing and pressuring. It reminded her again of her position. Ponies thought being a princess was about being perfect, and having a perfect life, albeit the reality was that exact opposite. As a princess, she had to perform duties beginning from the early morning, all the way to the late night, not to mention also having to deal with controversy. Some ponies love her, and others didn't. Most believed she was too young and regular to achieve such a rank. Some said so because they didn't like her personally. Others say it's simply she doesn't deserve it, because she's nowhere near like Princess Celestia, Luna, and Cadence, and she constantly had to fight with all her willpower to not burst into tears or show them just how much it hurt when she faced them, even after the amount of times I threw myself into danger to protect them. And ponies had seen her, with her friends and facing the villain head on. She'd done so to protect Equestria, to protect its ponies, so they wouldn't be hurt. In return, she expected gratitude from her subjects. She thought they would love and appreciate her. She thought they would give her a shout-out to the end, and her friends, when they spoke of ponies they most respected. But no, aside from a few that did like her, she only received complaints. She only received hate and negativity. She would never be good in their eyes. Never as good as Luna, Celestia, and Cadence. Only they were real princesses, treated almost like goddesses. The colts and fillies loved Luna in particular, but she was just in their shade. On public appearances, where she and the princesses would appear together, most ponies' attentions would be entirely on those three. Some would forget she's even there. She only ever spoke truthfully about her feelings with her friends, Spike, and admittedly Luna too. She never told Cadence or Celestia. She only told Luna. Reason being because Luna found out in her dreams, so she ended up telling her. In return, Luna had smiled and said of how she could relate to her once upon a time, when she was ignored as well. But then she would have reminded the Lavender Princess she shouldn't let another's opinion get to her. Twilight tried to follow her advice, but mostly fails. Her friends would comfort her to the best of their abilities. Unlike Twilight, they were also loved much by ponies. Fluttershy because she's a beauty queen, including her gentleness, Discord's reformation, and making a massive dragon cry. Pinkie Pie is loved because of her happiness and funny personality. Rarity is loved because, just like Fluttershy, she too is a beauty queen and fashionable. Twilight could name many stallions with a crush on Rarity. Rainbow Dash was very loved too, mostly by foals and the Wonderbolts. They all liked her awesomeness and athletic spirit. Lastly, ponies also loved Applejack. Her strength and singing voice are a few reasons why, but Twilight could admit her friends did have irresistible personalities. What was she? Just boring, perfect princess? She couldn't agree any less. She was boring.
And I can't agree any less either.
Twilight sighed. It came no surprise to her he spoke now. He only ever began speaking if she really needed him, or if he caught her thinking or saying something negative about herself. He loved to pick on her weaknesses.
Of course I do.
Come on, Twilight thought, back with a groan. Can't you leave me in peace if you don't have anything nice to say?
I'm never nice, technically,
he said, as if that didn't state the bottom line about her friend.
We're not friends. I don't make friends with enemies.
He said in a way you couldn't think he was joking. He was in her head to use her. Twilight had figured out a long time ago, but Twilight hadn't told on him, so she wasn't sure his treatment of her was fair.
I made you not tell. You know the price you'll have to pay if you do.
Which is, he'll control her mind, 'cause somehow he can from in her head, and then he'll make her go and murder her own friends.
Exactly. I'm relieved you remember.
He paused and then added,
If you still don't believe the mind-controlling part, I can always show you again.
Twilight stiffened. No thanks, she cried. She had already had a taste of how that felt. He would do something which would take away the part of her mind that made her her, and then she would feel nothing, just his voice vibrating inside her.
It's one of the influences of dark magic. You could attach the power with negative thoughts, which is enough to allow me to take over the rest of your mind. That one bad thought I used will burden you so much, you wouldn't think of anything else. And in this case, that thought would be your reluctance to becoming a princess. You think outliving your friends is so sad and unbearable.
Because it is, Twilight shot back. How could I be the princess of friendship if I have no friends?
You poor, tragic filly,
he cooed. Twilight didn't miss the mocking note of his voice.
This is your reward for looking up to your wise and precious mentor.
Now Twilight jerked up. You don't know anything about Celestia, she snapped, momentarily forgetting she could communicate with him through her thoughts. She heard him hum until his response came.
Actually, I quite do know about Celestia. I know some things about her even you might not know.
Twilight glared hard. Sombra, are you telling me this because you think I'll betray Celestia and join you so I can become your evil puppet? She flinched when he began laughing, a sound that vibrated uncomfortably through her mind.
Of course not,
he said, his laughter waning, tone becoming serious again.
What would I do with you? Even if it would be rather satisfying to watch you strangle your mentor, I much prefer doing my conquests myself, so I would feel pride for my own well-deserved victory. I only resort to using others if I have good reason, and my form of corrupting is simply mind-controlling you to get rid of my enemies. Once I'm done, I'll just toss you in the dungeon until I decide to do something else.
What if I rot by the time you do decide to do something else?
Then I forget you ever existed.
Why are you so heartless? She asked with a shiver.
Because I'm evil.
Can't you care the slightest, at least for someone who's dying?
Only if you're of use. Otherwise, I don't care. Or if you deserve to live.
What do you mean?
As in, if you are resistant and have tried to fight me. I personally like strong, resistant mares. I dislike weak, cowering ones. So in that case, if I think you deserve to live, you live. If I don't, then you die.
Twilight sighed again. She was likely not on Sombra's list of strong, resistant mares because she's boring and perfect. So she would die.
I'm debating on you.
Oh, nice. Twilight thought with mock relief. It's not like I would be worried about being debated on to be kept dead or alive. That's usually my favorite thing, thank you.
You're not funny,
Sombra stated flatly. Twilight felt tears go down her face. I wasn't trying to be, she responded. Her voice was both sour and choked. A lump twisted in her throat.
You really are a delicate little flower, thinking you would never be like your pink friend, because you're boring and perfect.
More tears fell down Twilight's cheeks. No matter what she would do, she'd never be good enough. Not in the eyes of her subjects. She was just a useless button attached to on a coat.
Although Equestria strictly needs you.
What? She gasped. Her mane was completely straightened from the rain.
You were, after all, forced to take this responsibility for protecting Equestria by your amazing teacher. She practically wrote down your entire life on a scroll. After one event, she checks the scroll again to see what to do next.
Is that really true, though? No matter what Celestia might be doing, Twilight still felt like making Celestia proud was a priority. She was almost a second mother to her.
Second mother.
There's no lie to that, Sombra, Twilight admitted. Celestia's been looking after me since I got my cutie mark. She believes in me and says I'll do things she couldn't.
Perhaps. I suppose her moon-licking sister Return is one example of that.
You have a very weird way of comforting, you know? Thanks, I guess. Twilight paused before adding. Also, Luna's not moon-licking.
She behaves that way.
No, she doesn't. She's a lot better than you.
By how much?
By eternities.
Yet I never vowed to create eternal night, which would have ended all life in Equestria. Moonlight isn't required to grow plants and food.
Says the pony who enslaved all the citizens of the Crystal Empire and may have also abused some per residents. I think I picked Luna over you. At least she wasn't harming any pony. She just wanted ponies to love her and her knight.
You can have your opinion. It doesn't affect me.
Twilight looked ahead, taking a few steps forward. She raised her head to the sky, closing her eyes. A small smile formed on her face. The rain feels nice, she thought.
But it's pressure as well. In everything, little one, there are pros and cons. In other words, even if you build Equestria a bright future, there'll still be bits of darkness which remain. Nothing can be perfect, and neither can you.
Twilight's eyes flew open at those words, as they settled in her head. What she just heard, she wasn't sure if she was hallucinating, but those last words, "and neither are you," she felt her heart jump when she heard his voice again.
I meant it. Nothing is perfect. Perfection's impossible destination for anything. You aren't perfect. In fact, you're irritating in many ways.
A flat look passed over Twilight's face again. Once again, she thought. You have a really weird way of comfort.
Well, what do you expect? You think I of all ponies would be good at comfort? And besides, you're irritating.
How? Twilight demanded.
When you keep giving me your pointless speeches about goodness, when you panic and obsess with checklists, when you make the utmost stupidest decisions.
I see. Twilight raised her head again, closing her eyes. Feeling the rain, her thoughts went back to Sombra's words. When he said nothing would be perfect. No matter what Twilight or any pony else did, there will always be darkness. I guess that's fine, she thought. I wouldn't like the world to be perfect either. Overhead, lightning flashed with a bright electric bolt. The sound of a thunderclap came followed. The rain poured on. Twilight's fur was completely soaked.
Your fault for standing out here.
Twilight's brow furrowed. I didn't ask, she shot back. She practically felt his resulting eye roll.
What was your purpose for coming out here anyways?
I like the rain, Sombra. The sound and feeling calms me. It also helps me relieve stress, which is important for any pony's health.
Rain. I don't think I've seen such a thing often.
Twilight snorted a giggle. Of course you haven't. You probably spent more than half your life in the Arctic, where there's just snow and ice.
Indeed.
How does it feel, though? The rain?
It's alright, I suppose. It would never be as beautiful or as fascinating as snow, but it's still alright.
Twilight gazed ahead. The rain slowed and the clouds began to clear. Shafts of sunlight shined through the clearings. Twilight felt her eyes widen with wonder as an arch of colours slowly appeared before the dark clouds. Gradually, the colours brightened, shining more and more vibrant. A rainbow, she thought in awe.
How girly.
Shut up.
Make me.
Twilight ignored him. She simply looked on at the dazzling view. The gorgeous hues now gleamed and contrasted completely with the dark background. It was so majestic, so elegant, and light-heartening. Twilight felt her own soul feel alive and better.
So much cringiness.
Complain all you want. I love this. And I feel happy. So happy. Despite the stress and burden I'm under, I can still make room for happiness and self-care. I love the rainbow, Sombra. Even the darkness that comes with it. Aww. That's sweet. That is sweet. And intriguing. Could this be a remnant of Sombra? I feel like this might have been written, or at least conceived, the basis of the story would be when she was a princess, but before the whole he comes back thing. Possible. Be a remnant of her using dark magic. Slightly worries me that he's in her head, but eh. But yeah, that was a kind of nice story of Sombra, whose backstory is harsh, if I remember correctly from the comics. Anywho, that was Out in the Rain, written by Galaxynight. I hope you all enjoyed, and keep watching that moon. Bye!